This just in. Breaking news. Our top story tonight. A new twist in the Ivey case. Borgata seized Phil's World Series of Poker winnings this year, but apparently he was backed by Jungle and Trincher. Will Jungle end up winning this case, or will the Borgata receive the lion's share? Next up, an event at the Venetian has possibly unlimited rake, as the prize pool is just a guarantee and does not expand for additional entries. Here at Poker News as a follow-up, we reached out to Sheldon Adelson for comment. Next up, LLinusLove, one of the top 6 max players online, has been accused of cheating over on 2+2. Personally, this accusation seems far-fetched. I mean, sure, computers can beat humans in heads-up poker, and they can also beat humans in 6 max poker, and they can also beat humans and everything else online. I mean, what are the chances the high-stakes guys are using software? All this and more tonight on Poker News. I want to say thanks to everyone for joining tonight, and if you want to up your game, you can head over to upswingpoker.com and check out our latest courses. But let's get into our first story here tonight, which is this Venetian event. Now, when I first saw this, it seemed far too ridiculous to be true, but it is. The Venetian has a $150,000 event with a maximum prize pool. That's right, maximum prize pool of $150,000. Now, there's been a long line of Sheldon Adelson making moves to hurt poker players, including lobbying against online poker because, frankly, he wants your money at his casino, and this is not something that we should be surprised to see. In my opinion, when you buy into a poker tournament, the buy-in should go to the prize pool. You know, this is really groundbreaking stuff. Because every additional buy-in will go straight to the Venetian rather than actually going to the prize pool, this means that the percentage of your buy-in that is raked could actually become astronomically high if a large number of people play this tournament. As an example, if there was $300,000 in buy-ins, well, half of that would go to the casino. You know, that actually doesn't sound too bad. Now look, the Venetian is a company and gets to operate in its own best interest. And that's part of a free market. We got to accept that. Sometimes there are certain casinos that are going to do things that are questionable to make more money, but they have the right to do those things as a business and acting in their own best interest. But this is what's important. As poker players, or really as any customer for a business, when businesses start to do these practices that are really unacceptable, we need to stop purchasing their products in order to prevent this from becoming more widespread. If we didn't care if the Venetian did this and this event went well, what message does that send to the rest of the poker ecosystem? Hey, you can do this too, and before you know it, you're going to be paying 50% rake at every buy-in. So what I'm starting here is a boycott of this Venetian event. It goes from October 21st to October 27th. And we need to make sure that this thing is as much of a failure as we possibly can. I mean, even if it's just a little over 150, it's not going to be nearly as profitable for them as if it was a big multi-day series, which is what they're trying to make it look like. I mean, there's 6 starting days here for this tournament. We need to try and get this number as low as possible. Also, get the word out there. Use hashtag boycott the Venetian. I'm going to get some retweets going on Twitter as well so we can get the word out and make sure people don't play this. We got to fight against things that are this horrible for the poker economy. I'm going to do my part, and I hope you do too. Moving on to our next story. There was a thread started on 2+2 a little bit ago where essentially one of the high stakes players on PokerStars was accusing LLinusLove of essentially using software in order to play. High stakes player Phil Ivey went to 2+2 to post a very long story, including what he believed was evidence that his opponent was cheating. He gives lots of examples, talks about the player's play style and some of the timing things, but ultimately went on to then say at the end of the thread that he thought that the guy wasn't cheating. Sauce also put his opinion into the thread, which I think is important. Let's take a look at what he said. This is poor quality evidence for cheating. Having studied solvers for many years now, I can say confidently that with a high level of talent and dedication, it's possible to play at a very high level that might not seem humanly possible. It takes thousands of hours of focused solver work, the ability to understand the concept underlying that work, and a very fast brain. That might rule some people out.
I fucking beast high stakes. I beast everything I play.
He doesn't.
So it's hard to prove that someone's cheating just from observing they play great. It doesn't seem sufficient to show that they changed styles at various points. Maybe they learned new things. On the other hand, it's much easier to cheat, i.e. use real-time assistance, than it is to have the talent and dedication required to play at an elite level. So it seems likely that at least some of the players being the high stakes are cheating. Greed is a hell of a drug, etc. We already find people straight up botting, so likely the same sort of person comfortable botting would be comfortable using AI assistance. And it's so easy to hide. Maybe only use it sometimes. Maybe the IA itself isn't perfect and you're facing a bet size that the AI isn't close to and has to tweak the outputs. The cheater occasionally misclicks, all these types of things. I don't know what to do about the issue, and neither does anyone else as far as I know. With someone like 40and7, who was a well-known high-stakes player that was caught cheating essentially, it was so much more obvious because no one knew who he was. He came out of nowhere, and he reset stacks to exactly 100 big blinds. Never played anything other than heads up, and played every hand perfect. Linus, on the other hand, is part of the community, clearly has a deep understanding of poker, and even plays the super high roller circuit. I think it's unlikely Linus is cheating, and the evidence presented is insufficient. +1 to this being in some ways a Linus tribute thread. But if someone is cheating well, what evidence is sufficient? And even though the original poster went on to retract his comments, the thread has been taken down, it still brings up a very important question. What is the standard for proof when it comes to cheating online, and how can we do something about it? My opinion is that I think the future for online cash games is somewhat bleak. Maybe that's not today, maybe that's not next year. But if we think about it like this, there's so much money to be won at high stakes, there's always a chance that people are going to be taking advantage of software to beat people. And now that there's more and more software available that has that ability to do so, it's going to happen more and more often. Let's say you're the only person in the world that had the perfect solution to 6-max play. Well, in that scenario, if you used it, you would make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And so essentially there's this incentive gap, which is people are incentivized to cheat. However, they're not really incentivized in any way to be honest unless they're good people. And while most people are good people, that's not going to be what ends up happening in the high stakes scene. I can also say, just having played high stakes for a few years there online, there was always talk of people either using assistants while they're in games or having their own software built, or you're playing against a bot, or you're playing against someone else in the account. You know, look, like, here's the reality. When you play high stakes online, you accept some degree of risk that you're not playing who you think you are, and they might be using software, because frankly, these things are very hard to prove. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive to try and, when we can figure out that this is happening, try to ban these players and confiscate the funds. But at the same time, if they're very good with the process, you're probably never going to know. And that's a reality of online poker. You can only do so much to protect yourself. So if you're in a game and you're worried that it seems suspicious, or one player seems very bot-like, or you're worried that there is collusion between players, things of this nature, you should take it seriously and you should leave the game. Even if there's only a few % chance that you're getting scammed, well, that's going to really hurt your win rate to the point where if you're a winning player, you might be losing. The same thing goes for shifty live games. If you're in a place where the rake is really high, or maybe there are players that could be colluding, in those situations, you have to try and protect yourself. Look, poker's tough. Everyone's trying to take your money. You got to be smart with what you're doing, who you trust, where you decide to play. These are important factors. Poker is not like it was 10 years ago where everyone's a donk and like you can just figure out your own thing. You got to be smarter nowadays and make sure that you have your wits about you. Also, as a final comment on that topic, I have no idea if Linus is cheating or not. Apparently, a lot of people think he is not cheating, so the guy might be fine. But the thing is, you don't really know for sure. No one knows for sure when you're playing online, so that's why you need to be careful. And our final story tonight, this Phil Ivey case seems to always just have so many twists and turns. Phil Ivey lost a couple of lawsuits to large casinos, most notably the Borgata and Crockford's, where he was essentially edge sorting in order to gain an advantage playing in a house game. And now when he played the World Series of Poker, they stepped up to try and confiscate his winnings because frankly they were owed the money. The new turn is that apparently the money that was put up to play wasn't even Ivey's. It was actually Jungle and another person named Trincher, who looks to be some kind of mafia person. I could also definitely be mispronouncing that name. Jungle and Trincher have actually filed a lawsuit to try and get this money back. It was a roughly $120,000, $130,000 score that Ivey had over the summer. They're essentially filing that this wasn't Ivey's money, it's their money, and they're asking for it back from the government. So that definitely seems likely to happen. There's a lot of information about the case, including some of the screenshots of the conversation between the two. But the main takeaway that I have here is that I'm a little surprised to see Ivey is being backed for a $50,000 event. I mean, look, this is one of the guys who's played the highest stakes, one of the biggest names in poker for such a long period of time. The guy certainly at some point had 8, if not 9 figures worth of money just from his shares of Full Tilt and playing in private games. This guy used to be insanely successful. Now, look, I know a $50,000 buy-in is a big buy-in, so I'm not saying that everyone should be able to afford that. Obviously, most people can't. But Phil Ivey's not everyone. Phil Ivey is one of the most famous and respected players in the game. To be honest, the deal did seem pretty good for Phil Ivey. I mean, he's getting put in the event and gets half his winnings with no risk. That's a pretty solid play and likely extremely plus EV for Phil Ivey. In fact, even if he's a terrible player, he's definitely making money. So there's a variety of factors where maybe Phil Ivey, even though he could afford to play, decided it's better to have someone back him for it. But frankly, that just does not seem like Phil Ivey to me. What seems more likely is that Phil Ivey is in a bit of a bind with these lawsuits, with maybe some private games going wrong. Lord knows what happened in those streets. But the point is, when someone's being back for 50K buy-ins, when they used to play all of the highest stuff, you should be a little bit concerned with how they're doing overall. And, obviously it's getting a little bit into the drama territory, but if Phil Ivey is being full backed for these 50K buy-ins, I don't think that he's doing too well in the felt. I want to take that back towards my prior point, which is a lot of times in poker, people are going to give you the best impersonation of themselves, right? Everyone's always going to show that they can afford to do things, that they're a good player, or that they're honest and trustworthy. And by no means am I saying Phil Ivey isn't any of those things. But at the end of the day, it's actions and what people are actually doing that tend to be the most honest. If someone moves down in stakes several levels, they're probably going through a bad run. If someone is moving up in stakes, they've probably been doing well lately. There's basically more honesty in people's actions than there is in what they have to say. And in this situation, it certainly seems to me like Phil Ivey has had a bit of a tough stretch here lately, and hopefully he can turn things around. That's going to do it here for me. Thank you for joining me today for Poker News. I'm actually going to be doing another one of these videos in the near future. We got a lot of topics to talk about, but hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.